Maybe I'll hand it back to you. I remember you told us a story about how I believe your aunt had contracted polio in Taiwan during your childhood. Would love to hear a little bit about how that disease impacted your family and how it shaped your commitment to vaccination.
So thank you again, Sia, for giving me this opportunity to speak. And I'll just share a little bit that very early on in my life, vaccine preventable diseases touched my family. So the year was 1957, and my aunt, who is my mother's sister in Taiwan, contracted polio. Now, Salk had already developed the polio vaccine in the US. However, this vaccine was not available yet in Taiwan. And because of this, my aunt was unfortunate and unlucky and contracted polio just about the time when she was walking. Um, it was incredibly devastating for our family because she currently now can't walk anymore. So she had just learned to walk, and then because of polio, could never walk properly anymore. The other piece of all of this is she does have complications from it. She has left lower leg paralysis, but at the time in Taiwan, there were not many people making prosthesis or special equipment for people who had disabilities. So it was really hard on our family to constantly try to find companies and doctors that could help her. And then I remember this one story that my mother told me is that my mother would carry my aunt on her back to get her to school. And then one afternoon, when they were both coming back from school, my mother slipped and they both fell into a river and they both were injured and got wet. And so I remember this story because my mom still continues to tell it. So, polio has affected our whole lives. My mother had to especially take care of my aunt. My aunt constantly had medical challenges, and it was really devastating. So I think when you see firsthand something like polio affecting your own family, and what that can do, and the devastation it causes, it really changes how you feel about vaccination and how important vaccination is to protect the people you love in your family. Yeah, so that shaped me from a very young age. Yeah,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
that. Yeah, we have this perception that these diseases are so far removed, but a lot of us, particularly those whose families came from other countries or those of us who did, have these stories of our grandparents or our, great uncles and aunts who suffered from this. It's not that far removed. So, thanks for that. Dr. Luber, I remember a personal story that you had shared about a very famous family and family member who you had treated in your lifetime. Do you mind sharing a bit about that story and how it reflects the fact that, infections and vaccine preventable diseases affect everyone, regardless of privilege or politics?
I would like to add, and hearing Vivian, I grew up in the 40s and 50s, and I remember the absolute fear that pervaded our families about polio. We couldn't go to the park. They didn't want us to go swimming at the community pool. And there was literally a child on every other block with polio. And the local National Guard armory was filled with the old iron lungs because they couldn't accommodate all the kids who needed it in the hospitals. And the absolute relief of that fear that came with the Salk vaccine at that time was palpable. And I think it really highlights, in conjunction with what you were talking about, the really devastating nature of these illnesses we're talking about. I was working in a resort community, Sun Valley, Idaho, and the Kennedys used to vacation there. And I saw one of the members of the family for an infectious disease. And that night, when we had the old telephone on the wall with the long cord that you had to dial, and my wife picked it up and said, "Stephen, there's a woman who says she's Ethel Kennedy on the phone. Will you please deal with this?" And I said, I hate to tell you, but there's a substantive chance that it is Ethel Kennedy. And she announced out of the speaker of the telephone, this is Ethel Kennedy. But she brought in the rest of the family for appropriate prophylactic measures to prevent the spread of the illness. Uh, and it was the illness did not respect social station, economic status. Uh, these illnesses did not pick and choose about who they infected. But then we routinely applied the measures that now seem to be in question. With vaccinations, there was no personal freedom that you hear about now, where the parent is free to choose whether the child's immunized. Back then, we all had to be immunized because we knew we had to protect everyone around us. And that you're not just protecting that person, but you're preventing epidemics within your own community.
It's a great point when we think about the community and protecting others. So thank you for ending on that point.